but I think the number was it 3.56 billion, or that, I think it was that with the bus terminal included. And of course, we haven't decided on the bus terminal yet. But what I'll say to you is this: you have taken at the upper end of the range, because I think, as I recall, it said there was the various contingencies that you made reference to in the latter of your list were contingency that could go from a -20 to a +50 or some such thing, and you've taken a number that's at the high end of that.
No, Mr. Mayor, I have not at all. That is not accurate. This is what is recommended in the report.
Okay.
This is the total amount given to me by the CFO.
They talk about a range.
So this is a fact.
They talk about a range, Madam Speaker, that is in the. Well, yes, they do, respectfully.
Okay, Councillor Davis, please allow the mayor to answer.
Okay. They talk about a range, but the other thing that you haven't taken into account, I'd say respectfully, is, through you, Madam Speaker, is that there's also a report that is in front of us as part of the material accompanying this report that talks about potential cost savings on choices we have to make with respect to construction. I think the number was $238 million, with several items not yet costed for possible savings. So that when you sort of blow the number up to the highest possible number you can, and I respect that that's mathematics one could do, I will say that I don't agree with that number, because I think we will end up with a number that is different than that, because we haven't yet looked at these savings opportunities, and we haven't yet looked at how we can make sure that we spend as little as possible, including keeping those reserves that you mentioned to the lower end of the range as opposed to the highest end.
Well, I'm afraid we will disagree on that.
Not a problem.
And, I absolutely know that we are committing to these reserves. So it also doesn't include the life cycle costs and, of course, the operations costs that all of us have failed to even talk about in this chamber. But what I wanted to ask,
just on that question.
No, that is
there
not.
Was one there somewhere.
No, not a question. That was not my question.
Well, it wasn't
Mr.
a question.
Mayor.
I thought this was.
No, that was not my question, Mr.
Okay,
Mayor.
but Councillor Davis, please.
I am going to ask you my next question. I didn't intend for this to be adversarial, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry.
Sure not. I'm sure not.
So
not within your name.
No. What I want to ask you, at this point, we're still $500 million in terms of differences with the mayor, with the provincial government, in terms of settling up on the inflation, projected inflation costs on their funding. What can you tell us about the commitments the provincial government has made in terms of funding?
I can tell you, Madam Speaker, to the member, that those discussions have been ongoing. I have probably raised it in every meeting I've had with the Premier. I've raised it in meetings with the Minister of Transportation. I've raised it in meetings with the Finance Minister when he was down to see me last week. I've raised it in meetings with the Liberal caucus members from Toronto. I've raised it with the Leader of the Opposition. And so that's the lonely vigil, I guess, that I've asked, and I haven't had the pleasure yet of your company.
I'm happy to be there.
I haven't.
Don't go there, John.
I haven't had the pleasure of your company as yet, and by that I mean.
I've never had the invitation, Mr. Mayor.
Well, no, but wait, now, since when did you wait for an invitation to weigh in on an important public policy issue related to this council? And that's the point I'm making. Everybody has lots to say when it comes to dumping on the Scarborough Subway extension and the Scarborough Network Transit Plan. But when it comes to standing up behind the mayor and behind this city and putting our foot forward to the province to get the money we need, both with respect to the Scarborough Subway and with respect to the other transit projects, there seems to be, from a lot of quarters, a deafening silence.
My final question is...
Councillor Davis, you don't have a final question. Your 5 minutes is up. Thank you.
When are you going to use the word disgusting? I'm just wondering.
Your time is up, Councillor Davis. Councillor Carroll, 5 minutes.
Yes, just a quick question of the mayor. I've heard you say that we need to get on with it, we need to get on with it, we need to hurry this up, and I appreciate that. We need something in place of the RT, but I'm just wondering why you would not want to move an amendment to make sure that that happens, given that it's taken us from Council's authorization to look at this to get to the stage we're at now. It's taken 8 months from July 2016 to get to here, March 2017, but we're now not to hear for another 18 months at the end of 2018. Is it your intent, when you say Q4 2018, do we mean September 2018, or could we go behind schedule and not see this till, say, after the election?
Madam Speaker, I didn't actually set the timetable that was recommended in the report. It was set by our professional staff, and I'm assuming from my discussions, because I didn't really quarrel with them on the timing, that to go from the 5 to the 30% of design, that's a lot of work, and that it involves a lot of people who are going to be doing that work that probably many of them don't even work for us directly. Some do, some don't, and that's the time it will take. As you've been pointing out, correctly, that transit projects take time. Councillor Perks said the same. It's true. And so I didn't move to sort of try and expedite that timetable because I think that's the time for an assignment of that order of magnitude that it's going to take. My only point in talking about delay has been to say that I believe that what has really gone on here, and this is the part that I just, and I could be corrected, but I think a lot of people are coming to the same conclusion as me, that what's gone on here is not a review. Look at the time we have not spent today on the bus terminal and on the alignment and on the procurement, and that we have spent on effectively relitigating the LRT versus subway issue. That's what goes on every time.
Be that as it may, is it not?
By the way, the only time there will be a legitimate vote in this chamber, Madam Speaker, is if by chance on one of these votes the LRT side of it wins, and then all of a sudden that will be the vote. Then Councillor Perks will say, no, we made that decision. When he said up till now there's never been a decision made to build a subway. What were those 7 votes, including the one, some of them way back
Madam
before I even got
here? I do have 2 additional questions. Is there some reason, Mr. Mayor, if the intention was to set the tone that we focus on those things, is there some reason why executives so quickly moved a motion that staff not even be allowed to present, in fact, those points of this discussion in executive? Could that be why we're not focused on
Madam
those
Speaker,
parts?
I say with
staff
respect,
have never been, is it not true that staff have never been given a chance to present this report in full, whether in executive or here?
Madam Speaker,
that is my complete
Madam
question.
Speaker,
I am now finished.
I heard the question. Madam Speaker, I would say with the greatest of respect, through you, that is a total mischaracterization of what happened at the Executive Committee, and you know it. You've been, let me finish. You've been around here a lot longer than I have, and you know that if the members of the committee request a presentation, they can have one. And when we went through the agenda, nobody requested a presentation. We'd all read the material. We'd all had plenty of chance, hours of time to question the staff before and after the deputants, but nobody asked for a presentation. And so for you to mischaracterize that, I think is unfortunate, and I think you should withdraw that, because in the end it was because the committee, not one member of the committee, asked for a presentation, nor did anybody else in the room for that matter. I will confess, in fairness to Councillor Davis, she came along well after this had all happened and asked for a presentation, and I said the time has passed. We'd moved on to the deputations and the questions. But for you to characterize that as some attempt by somebody not to have a presentation, I think is very unfair and very unfortunate.
So may I then just ask why you, as a member of the committee, did not ask yourself to, in order to set the tone and focus us in on this 34 bus bay and the realignment, why you yourself would not want staff, request staff to make the presentation?
Madam Speaker, I had read the extensive material that was provided to us, and we moved immediately to do 2 things. One was to hear from the public first, because they wait, and we all know that's courteous to do that. And the second was then, and we can go back and check the clock, we probably spent 2 hours asking questions of those very same staff people about the very complete material they had provided to us. And so the notion that we need somehow to have every single time when somebody writes a report, have people get up and sort of read that to us, when all is followed by exactly what happened, which is a question period of them, I don't know why that's such a big deal. And as I say, nobody asked for a presentation, so that's why there wasn't one.
That's right. No one asked who was a member of that committee.
But Councillor Carroll, on that point, a member of council this morning could have asked for a presentation at council. Nobody did. So I'm sorry, but you know that's the procedure.
Is that the rule of the Speaker?
Yes. For clarification, yes, for clarification.
Really, yeah.
Councillor Perks, question.
Get it.
Councillor Perks, question.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Mr. Mayor, what's the maximum amount of money you would spend on this?
You know, I get asked that by the media all the time, and that's
here
just,
we are. It's your opportunity.
That is a sort of speculative exercise that I'm not prepared to engage in, because, and the only answer I'll give you is as little as possible to get the express subway done, and I'm focused on taking the number the other way, which is down, and so I'm less focused on you wanting me to name some number that's in the stratosphere and be happy about that, or some other number. I want to take this number down by achieving the cost savings that are identified in the report we had commissioned, by making sure we don't need to use those reserves to the maximum extent provided for in the report, by working with the private sector on something like the bus terminal to see if there are ways in which they could help through their development activities to pay for the bus terminal and all that kind of thing. I'm trying to push that number down, not up, but at the same time, I am trying to get a subway built because people in Scarborough need that subway, they want that subway, and it's going to be good for Scarborough and for Toronto to have that subway there, attracting, as it will, jobs and investment long into the future.
Thank you. Now, as you recall, early in this term, we had a very, very vigorous debate about cost overruns. And if you turn your mind back to it, that's the York Region subway, the subway in the York Region. And if you recall the details, part of what went wrong there is they had overrun the reserves and were getting into problems with managing their contractors because there was no reserve to deal with some of the change orders. In a response to Councillor Davis, you said that part of how you wanted to keep the number down was that you wanted to reduce the amount that we put into those rare reserves. Aren't you creating exactly the risk that you chastised all the members of council from previous terms for? That's exactly what you got up on your high horse and said is the wrong way to plan transit. Isn't that what you're doing now?
Madam Speaker, through you to the member, that wasn't, first of all, what I said to Councillor Davis. What I said is that what you want to do is keep the number that is anticipated for that reserve is a range that goes from -30 to +50, I think. Yeah. I simply said that I think we've got to work to try and establish the actual use of those reserves, therefore the actual cost of the subway, at the lower end of that range, not the higher. And what I will say to you, I believe I have a very proud track record actually here since I've got here, because I'm the one, first of all, that was called into Mr. Byford's office the day after I got elected. I wasn't even mayor yet to be told of what an awful mess had been made of that project. And under Mr. Byford's leadership, with my full support and that of Chair Cole, we have actually put people in place to get that project finished and to stop all that incompetence and mismanagement that was going on. And I'll say the same of Union Station. And those were projects actually I had nothing to do with. Okay. You were here. I wasn't here. And I will say to you that on all the other major capital projects, I'm having a meeting in my office once a month to go through them and talk about how they're kept on time and kept on budget. And I'm not saying we will achieve perfection, but I am saying that since I've been here 2.5 years now, we haven't had any of those kinds of instances like Union Station and the York Subway, and I hope we don't, because we're exercising basic discipline to try and make sure that those things are minimized to the greatest extent possible. And that will continue to be my approach with this project as well.
On that point, how much is the cost of this project and the cost of the Gardner rehabilitation inflated since you took office?
Well, you could probably do that math, but the bottom line is that in the case of the Gardner rehabilitation, yeah. I'm the first to say here that there was a policy choice made, approved by the City Council, by the way. I mean, sometimes people sort of pretend that I make these decisions sitting alone in my office, and I don't. Every one of these things, without exception, has to come to this Council, and the Council chose by majority vote to adopt a revised format for the Gardner maintenance, and it increased the cost, no question about it. And in this case, there have been cost changes to the Scarborough Subway extension. But in the end, I believe that the question that we have to satisfy ourselves on is that this is going to be a good long-term investment. And on that is.
So, just if I may, I'm running low on time, sir.
Okay.
Earlier, in answer to one of my questions, you said you didn't want to get into a hypothetical discussion of what this might cost at the end of the day. Why is it that you're unprepared to get into a hypothetical conversation about billions of dollars, but you're quite happy to take a hypothetical perception of how much time someone might save?
Well, but I am. But one is a hypothetical, and the other is actual people telling me about their own experiences.
No, hypothesizing about their future.
Well, but again, I'm just not going to engage in an exercise with you about a number that I can't literally. I mean, I can't cite a number that sort of says that this is a number, because I'm actually trying to push the number the other way. So that's why I've just refused to participate in that. Whereas I can and do accept the fact that people will come up to me and say things. They've actually said those things to me. I don't go up and sort of play games with them. They come and depute in front of our executive committee and tell their story of how they live. And we heard people in this council chamber talking about the same thing.
Thank you. Okay. 6 o'clock, and we are We have our break from 6 to 6:30. So I would just like to ask members of council, we have two choices. We break and come back at 6:30, or we bury the order paper and we complete the item and then have our break. So I need direction. Okay, Mayor Tory. Mayor
Madam
Tory.
Speaker, that if you allow me to, and make me come back after the half hour to continue to answer questions, I'll be re-energized and my answers will be much longer.
Well,